can't believe at one point in my life this is all I would have until 2 p.m. A shot of espresso. Oh, we're gonna talk about that today, fam. We're gonna talk about that today.
What's up, fam? Welcome to the Messy Action Podcast, where I plan to teach you to use messy action to finally level up in all aspects of your life. We will be talking all things health and fitness, business, relationships, and more. I'm your host, Courtney Lombardo. Now let's get into the show.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to a fresh episode. I know last week's episode was a little lower frequency, okay? It was genuine, it was real, it was authentic. If you have not listened to that episode, go listen to it. Your girl was struggling the last month and I just kind of opened up about it and also just taught some really valuable tools I have in my back pocket to learn how to rise a bit better. And this episode is going to be on a very similar frequency, right? I want to come in here and just be very authentic and talk to you guys about something I've never really gotten deep with at all across social media. I have touched on it, and it is my relationship with food. So I have been transparent to a certain level with the girlies on Instagram, and of course my clients know probably the most out of anyone, just because I want them to know I do empathize on a different level. I went through those trials with food and tribulations because I now have that testimony to help them, right? I know how many women struggle with their food and their relationship with food, and transparently, I never struggled with it until a few years ago, okay? So we're gonna get into my very full story on this episode, and I'm just gonna really lay it all out there for you. If it is something that you can relate to, I hope that you can take away kind of the lessons I learned and how I focused on self-healing. Quickly, I want to say that this episode could be potentially triggering to anyone going through this right now, is, healing from the relationship with food or potentially disordered eating. There might be triggering words or just hearing about my experience. If it's not conducive to your journey, girl, get out of here. Get out of here. You are not hurting my feelings. Do what is best for you. I'm going to start from the very beginning and just kind of go through all of it. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous. Maybe you can tell by my voice or my mannerisms that I'm a little bit nervous, but I think that I went through these things to help you guys. That is genuinely my purpose and why I do believe I went through the things I did. And whilst it's difficult to talk about, I think it definitely shows a sign of healing, right? I remember so much shame in the moments where I was really deep into it that I couldn't even tell myself what was going on and be honest to myself. So even personally, this is a win, being able to sit here and talk to you guys today about it. Ooh, I'm gonna cry. I might. This is really emotional, that's why I titled this episode, quote unquote, it's just food, because for some people it's so easy to say that, right? But if you've struggled with this yourself, you understand it's not just food. It can be so all-consuming, and there's a lot of different pulling emotions. There's a lot of shame, and there's excitement, there's guilt, there's all the different things. So today we're gonna get into it. Growing up, I absolutely never struggled with my relationship with food. Nope, I loved food. I still love food. I'm a foodie. I love sweets. I love ice cream. I love tacos. I love pasta. Italian food, give me a... My parents raised me to not really feel super self-conscious about what I was putting into my body and why. I was an athlete growing up. They were food is fuel. You need this, you need protein. Peanut butter was protein in our house, but I digress. You get what I mean, right? There was no short of the end where my mom would ever cut off food or do this or that. Food was freedom. There was freedom around food, and maybe too much, right? It just kind of depends. But at the end of the day, my parents always meant well. And so did my grandparents. They knew the way to my heart was food. But for them, that's how they showed love as well. So I would go over to grandma's and I was ready to eat a full loaf of French toast every time. So, I slept over at grandma's a lot. And also my mom was, a mother of 4. So there was a lot of fast food moments. There was a lot of convenience moments. We did all the quick options. So growing up, that's my story, right? I definitely would push you to go back and look through your story, because a lot of how you grew up around food and what your story around food was, and now, to this day, stems from your childhood. So definitely go back and look at it. With all that being said, throughout that time growing up, I was a picky eater. So I really only liked the carbs, the sweets, this or that. I liked the really unhealthy things. I had a hard time eating veggies, fruits. I wanted nothing to do with it. And that carried over for a very long time. I will not lie. I was fairly picky until Probably until like 2 years ago, guys. I didn't start liking salad or like greens or anything until literally 2 years ago. So it was a process, and if you're a picky eater too and can relate, it's a process worth working on, 100%. You will mature with time, trust the process, but you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Anyways, I'm getting into education a little too soon. I want to keep on with my story really quick, and then I'll get to you guys. So food stayed fairly stagnant for me all throughout like my life. Like it was just fuel for sports all throughout high school. I had my moments where like, you know, I made breakfast carbs every morning. Like it definitely wasn't healthy, but like I didn't think about it, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't feel bad for eating the way I did. So, going into college is when things sort of changed. So, immediately going into college, you know, a lot of those unhealthier tendencies really just were expedited with having the availability of goods all the time. With the food court, I had that available all the time, and then there was drinking on top of it. So, I started to see a little bit of a weight gain, but nothing that stood out to me my freshman year, right? Like, I still didn't care that much at that point. I don't remember caring a ton. I think I was definitely self-conscious now, more so about my body and stuff, but to be fair, like I had kind of felt that way growing up. You know, I just knew like my genetics were like, I was like a little bit of a bigger girl. So I was kind of used to that feeling. So I never blamed food or deemed it to be the food or the exercise, right? Then I hit the pivot moment that I talk about in my transformation episode. If you haven't listened to that, I definitely recommend you listen to it. That pivot point was the point where I'm like, I need to go work out. Like, this is not me. I don't recognize her. Like, I don't feel myself. Like, it was not good, right? So that was my moment where I'm like, I'm going to do better for myself. So once I hit that, it was more so exercise. I didn't go straight to food because for me, health and fitness seemed off the table for me because I was such a picky eater, guys. Like, I literally thought, I can't lose weight. I can't look the way I want to because I don't want to eat salad. Like, I had thought that health and fitness was only one way. So finally, I moved out of my sorority house. You know, I started working out a little bit more. I got my own kitchen. This is where everything changed, literally everything. So once I got my own kitchen, I started to dabble with new food. Nothing crazy, nothing like fruits or veggies yet, but just like oats or egg whites or Kodiak cakes, like the healthier options that I would have never picked up before, right? So that already put me in a really good headspace. And then I started portion sizing. I started meal prepping. I started making just chicken and rice and things my mom was teaching me. So that was a really good year. I never saw it as restriction. I was just learning. I was learning to do and eat better for myself. Moving forward, that's kind of when COVID hit. And this is where I definitely think my relationship with food started to change. I like to say that it happened only 2 or 3 years ago or whatever once I moved to Arizona, but I actually think it happened in COVID, now that I think about it more than ever, because COVID was an opportunity for me as an exercise enthusiast. I was so excited about Instagram and like growing my platform that I wanted to film and work out all day, but I also wanted to look a certain way. So I was starting to learn more about intermittent fasting and like all the different trends. I will pride myself on staying away from most diet trends and most workout trends. I never really did Beachbody at 45. I never really did any of that. Workouts were always on my own. I taught myself, but diet-wise, I did do intermittent fasting, and I did it for the wrong reason. So I'm not an advocate or against intermittent fasting, but I am against it if you do it the way I did it, right? So I would wake up still around 5, 6 a.m. I've always been a go-getter, early morning girly. And I literally wouldn't eat until 3 or 4. And I was like starving. I was starving going into those moments. Like, I remember I would pick in the morning at like some cereal, but then I would like put it back and I would feel extremely guilty that I broke my fast early. And then, I mean, with pushing your meals off that long, I could allow myself only have 2 meals in a day and then a dessert at night, right? So we were in a mad restriction phase, and I think I knew it and didn't know it all at the same time, right? I was also over-exercising, literally 2 to 3 times a day because I just had the time. But I started to see results. I really did. I was starting to see myself thin out in a way I've never seen before. It was absolutely addicting. And my parents had a scale in their bathroom where I would weigh myself every day, and I couldn't stop. I loved the feeling of, you know, restricting myself to that level. And so when I would go out with my friends and eat tacos or something on the weekend, like, it was okay. I never was like mad about that actually, like, because I knew I was restricting so much during the week that it really didn't matter. So after that period of time came kind of the colder months, you know, November, December, October, whatever. The months where I really love the foods, like especially in Nebraska, like the foods in those months are just always so good with the holidays and everything. On top of that, I actually got thumb surgery. So this all skyrocketed a spiral. I was rebounding. I got the surgery, couldn't work out the way I wanted to, started eating out of pity. Like, I started to see the weight come back on. Then November came, so Thanksgiving was happening, all those foods happened, then same with December, and then I actually moved. I graduated, and then I moved to Arizona. So all while I was feeling the thinnest and, like, quote unquote the best I ever had, I saw the rebound, and then I moved to Arizona. Okay, so once I got to Arizona, I was like, comparison city, right? It's Arizona at the end of the day. Like, we all know Scottsdale, we know the stereotype. So I started to talk so poorly to myself. I started to be like, I need to make a change, and this is really where things got really bad for me. And again, I'm just telling you the story so that you kind of really understand what I've gone through and where I'm at today, which is really cool, and how we got there. Getting back to Scottsdale, this is probably a year-long journey and process where I really thinned out. I got the thinnest I ever have, and my relationship with food was gnarly, guys. Like, I was mad restrictive. There's awful binge episodes. Like, we're talking, like, waking up in the middle of the night to eat, like, peanut butter or whatever nut butter is in there, and cookies or whatever that is, or hiding my food, getting things out on the go, and, like, eating a whole cookie, feeling so bad about it, and at moments doing things that I just was just so not proud of. Like, I was so shameful in those moments. It was just all consuming, you know what I mean? And, like, to go out to eat was just, like, painful for me. I was stressed about it all day. I remember literally being at a Smoothie King, and he put too much peanut butter into my smoothie, and I, like, actually cried. And I literally was so upset I wouldn't drink it. I literally walked out of that store and I poured it out. Those are $9 smoothies. Those are $9. Oh my goodness, Courtney. So I was at a really low point with my food, and at this point, full transparency, I was a coach. So I knew what I was doing, I knew what was going on, and I was just letting it spiral anyway. So anyway, towards the end of that, I got to the point where I lost my period. And this was the biggest awakening for me ever. I've never lost my period before. I've always known to hear about, like, bodybuilders and females, like, losing the periods because too low body fat percentage. It's just, like, a sign of, like, your underlying health, and, like, it was terrifying for me. I'd been in and out of the OGBYN like 3 to 4 times, honestly, and, like, before I finally broke into my OBGYN, like, what I was doing and what was going on, and she was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense, because she was trying to get to the bottom of it with me. I had taken medicine to, like, force a period, and it still didn't come. So yeah, this is a lot. I know, this is, like, fully transparent, but at the end of the day, I think it'll help you to never maybe get to this point, or if you're at this point, I hope you know, like, self-healing is possible. And I also want you to know, like, if you can't self-heal, you need to seek help. You absolutely need to seek help. If you are ever at a point where you have lost your period after manipulating your food and your exercise, we have a problem. That is your baseline health. That is your body screaming at you. And thank goodness I took the sign, right? And thank goodness I was scared out of my mind because of that. But some people don't think about it. They're just like, kind of nice I don't have a period. For me, that was terrifying. Okay, so with all of that being said, I definitely was fortunate enough for, such a short timeline with these behaviors and thoughts that I didn't do any serious damage to my overall health. And I also, on top of that, was able to work through it mostly by myself. At the end of the day, this is how I self-healed. My relationship with food, and honestly my disordered eating, guys. You have to call it for what it is, and that brings me to my number one point, which is honesty. Full honesty. If you can't sit down with a piece of paper and write out what you're thinking, what are you doing to your body, your full honest opinions on what is going on in your head, then there's shame. So that's one level. And then outside of that, you have to be honest with at least one other person. That's my rule of thumb, is, like, being able to talk it out with one other person, whether that's someone, outside of your life or really close to you, whoever that is to you. Being able to have that honesty with one other human is really important, because then they know what you're going through. They can see your actions and behavior. You don't have to ask accountability out of them just yet, but just being honest, right? Bringing up boundaries with the topic is also important, right? So maybe you're in that season of your life right now, and you were someone who at the beginning of the episode heard that this could be potentially triggering. Creating that boundary with yourself, okay? Being like, this isn't going to serve me right now, and doing that with each and everything that comes to you in life. If you know someone in your life that can't relate, it's important to create a certain amount of distance with that person maybe at this point in time, right? If they don't understand the struggles you're having with food and you wanted to bring it up and you want to have that conversation, but they're like, it's just food, it's fine, what are you doing? It's not that big of a deal, just try this, try that, right? You want a very supportive environment around you, so creating those boundaries is going to be really important for you at this point in time. Find your outlet for your feelings. Again, on every single episode I will mention it every time. Journaling. Now this might not be your outlet, okay, but at the end of the day, this was super impactful for me. I've got like 5-6 journals stacked that were just full, 1 to 2 of them of which were pretty much just talking about my relationship with food. I really was able to work out my feelings with that. I was able to record some patterns. I was able to go in and break down some of the thoughts, why I was thinking the way I did, and be able to reverse engineer from there. That is how my brain works, right? So again, it was a luxury for me to be able to self-heal. I don't think that everyone is in the brain space to be able to do it. But if you feel like you can take on the challenge, these are what the methods I use. Food. How can you work on it? Okay? This is going to be different for everyone. So there's a few different methods. You could hire a coach if you feel like that's going to be conducive to them understanding your relationship with food, them almost programming for you to be a bit more intuitive, them adding macros to your plate, or do you not want the pressure right now? Maybe the extra pressure is a little bit much. So how do you bring it into yourself to hold you accountable? How can you find a way to work with food that is going to be productive for your relationship with food? So this is going to be super individualized, guys. For me, it was introducing a lot more intuitive eating days without fear of, messing up, and like just checking my weight after it and being like, you're okay, dude. Like, it's going to be okay. For me, it also was macros. Macros was super healing, just knowing that I can eat more and more and more and more, and understand that my body needed that level of nutrients. Number 5 is going to be accountability. Again, not only being honest with someone at the beginning, but then, moving forward into the recovery process, having someone hold you accountable, showing them, hey, this is one of my behaviors that doesn't make me feel my best, and I do it a lot, and if you could, call me out if you see it, I would really love that. Honestly, I need the accountability, dude. This can be anyone in your life, right? Someone really close to you. This could be a coach. This could be someone you hire. Whatever it needs to be for you, have that source of accountability so that it's not all on you. There's no sneaky about it. There's no shame about it. There's someone else holding your hand and walking alongside this journey with you. And then lastly, if none of this is working and you really are trying, you're giving it a few months, seek outside help, guys. There's literally no shame in it, and it is so important to heal this part of you. This is the last thing you need to be worrying about in this lifetime, okay? I promise you, it's not just food. Food is so much more than fuel. Food is more. Food is social. Food is cultural. Food is fun. Food is beautiful. It's romantic. It's spicy. It's sweet. It's so good. I'm such a foodie, guys, and if you're going through any of these feelings right now, I'm sending you so much love, dude. Like, I understand the pain. Like, it does not feel good. And just know that you are so much more than what you eat and how you look. I promise you. To go back to that dark space with food ever again would make me so sad. It makes me so sad to have some of my clients come to me and have some of the same thoughts. But again, I know I went through what I went through to be able to help y'all. So hopefully this episode hits in any way, shape, or form for you. Go ahead and slide up in my DMs and let me know what hit for you. It actually would be very impactful for me to just hear that something got through to you. And if it did, maybe I can go into more detail in more episodes about that something. Alrighty, fam. If you like this episode, please like, follow, subscribe, share, do all the things. You know the drill. I will leave you the way I leave you every single episode, and that is to go take some messy action in your life. You see the sign. It's in the podcast name. Go do something. What are you doing? Why aren't you taking messy action? Deuces!